Hello and welcome to Royale Without Cheese, our bi-weekly podcast in which we discuss both the classic and the unknown of Hollywood and foreign cinema from the then and now. We are your hosts, me, Tomás Ferreira, Leonardo Miranda,
Hey there.
hey, and Miguel Aido, who unfortunately isn't here today.
Oh no. Where's
Oh
Michael?
no, where's Michael? He's gonna be on the next episode, everyone, but today he wasn't feeling too well, but he's here with us in spirit. Well, we are three filmmakers in informal dialogue with a film review each episode, and with the wrap-up of 2022, we're opening a review series looking back at some of last year's films that might be possible Oscar contenders or simply top-to-talk festival darlings. Our Oscar segment will run throughout January, February, and March 2023. As part of our Irish shenanigan, reviews in both English and Portuguese will be available for different listeners. Today's episode will be in English, and we'll be having a go at Martin Mcdonagh's The Banshees of Inisherin. Portuguese speakers can head to the Portuguese labeled content section. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. Now sit back and hope you enjoy. Enjoy your like. The Banshees of Inisherin is a 2022 dark comedy written and directed by Martin Mcdonagh. Set on a remote island off the coast of Ireland, the film stars Colin, Ferrell and Brendan Gleeson as two lifelong friends who find themselves in a silent fight when one abruptly ends their relationship. The film had its world premiere at the 79th Venice International Film Festival on September 2022, where Ferrell won the award for Best Actor and Mcdonagh won the Best Screenplay. With wide critical acclaim, we now know that Banshees of Inisherin received 9 nominations for the Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Ferrell, Best Supporting Actor for Gleeson and Coogan, Best Supporting Actress for Condon, and Best Original Screenplay. However, how did it stand with the Royales of the Cheese?
The real opinion that matters.
The real opinion that matters in the public forums.
So, it's a wonderful film.
Yeah,
I
very
thought-
solid actually.
yeah.
That's how I find it.
I'm
you
not
know,
crazy, like insane about
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
it's good. It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I watched it twice, actually. First
Mhm.
at home, and then I went to the big screen.
Oh, cool. Yeah, actually, for me it was kind of reverse. I went to big screen first, then I rechecked it at home. But and I even felt differently about the ending. I mean, the first time around, the ending was kind of I was calling it anticlimactic. That was the feeling. But then I kind of saw it from a different slant the second time around. And overall, like you said, it's first of all, I feel that it's a film that, being that is a film with a big name director that has been up there with other directors in the famous celebrity forum, let's say, of Hollywood,
Yeah.
and with big names in the cast. It is wonderful that you get to have a film that, with all those big names and structure, presents a story that is just simple.
Mhm.
And Martin is very good at this. He grips you as a screenwriter because I think, he really approaches the directing work first with a great attention to the detail in his dialogue work and his character work, so as a writer and then as a director. And what he does is that he takes up these themes or these concepts that are very simple, but that in themselves carries something of a bigger than life meaning, I think. And I just love that he chose for this film to go back to his old partners in crime that are Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell. It's almost like a spiritual sequel to In Bruges in a way, because I think both of these films share, unlike what happened with his two American films, let's say, when he went stateside with Three Billboards and Seven Psychopaths. These two films in particular, Banshees and In Bruges, share this kind of connection of religion. He has a certain care for a religious or mysticism background in both these films, I feel, because if you look into it in a very nuanced, backgroundish, way, but it really influences your view of the characters, and a word that I like to use in both these films, the fatalism that you feel that someone is going to die, violence, bloodshed, almost in a biblical fashion is going to happen. And in Bruges, you have that in the sense that Bruges, the city, is seen as a purgatory where these two assassins or hitmen are awaiting judgment. In particular, the young one portrayed by Colin Ferrell, because both of them flee to this city in Europe, and especially by, you have the figure of Hieronymus Bosch, the painter, who they go to the museum and they watch his paintings, and it's very literally presenting them as the figure, the imagetic, let's say, form of the city has. This is purgatory, and we are awaiting what's the judgment's going to be, that is going to come from the high and mighty clouds, that is our boss back in London. And so in that film, you have a sense of this cross between concept just has honor amongst thieves and the guilt of killing of killing an innocent, of not protecting the innocent, which, well, Ferrell's character is guilty of killing a child. It's a job gone wrong, and that's why they go to the city to kind of evade the cops, the lawmen, but that's just a pretext. And then you have those concepts which seem pure and well-intended, with the idea of the need to be punished, the need to die, the need to be killed. Like there's some kind of obligation. There are these, Martin Mcdonagh kind of works out in his film the absurdity of violence. I think the absurdity of this needs to happen, and that all is carried through that all of that in that film in Bruges is carried through the character of Ralph Fiennes, who is the boss. It's about honor, and he needs to, to be dead. He needs to be killed. Like, why is that even an argument to anything, But that's what makes kind of the comedy of the drama of the whole thing. And in Banshees, what you have is very much this story of a friendship, this relationship that is at the very end of it. And it's a friendship, it's a relationship breakup, but the absurdity of it comes from what's the reason, really? Why is this happening? And we follow along the character of, once again, Ferrell has our main guy with the problem, with the main conflict, who is Pádraic, trying to follow on Pádraic. We're gonna have much fun in this episode with the Irish, but we follow him along, trying to figure out what's the reason and try to humanly understand it. But the thing is, it's not really ethically understandable, because why would you break up with the person out of nowhere? And the thing is, what is so interesting in Banshees is that there's this dialogue between the private and the collective, because friendship has a relationship. You have this idea of something that is strangely, it feels like property. Like it's a thing that exists has a couple. Decisions and rules are established in an invisible way as a couple, and you have these rituals as friends where you two go to the same places. You grab a pint, you go to the pub, they have a talk by the seaside, or in Colm Sunny Larry's house. And so that's how friendships work in invisible ways. And when that ceases to exist organically and in the sense of a collective, that we make decisions together, it is just strange when one of them makes a decision alone for the sake of both of them. And the decision is basically, I decided to just end the relationship.
Because you're dull.
Because you're dull, like overnight. Because it's dull, like overnight, I decided to do this. And that's the absurd. And so it's really the conflict. What I find so fascinating about Banshees is the conflict between individuality, so how one wants to spend his own time, and the collective, how do you give time to someone else? How do you give your interest and your time to someone else? And that simple idea, which is very powerful in the film, the contrast, the conflict between these two senses of being an individual and being together with another person who is consumed by you and is your friend, and we need to live things together constantly, because Pádraic seems to be very needy in that way in particular, is what is so interesting. And so in the sense of what I was just describing, the religious fashion of it, the biblical violence of it, it comes in Banshees, because the absurdity of how the relationship ends leads Pádraic to try and find the reason for it ending, and the try and finding and to try and make the friendship have some kind of a revival is what leads to violence, because then you have Brandon cutting his fingers and throwing at his door. The door gets bloody. He finds fingers in his backyard. Then his Pádraic's
Jenny.
donkey, then Jenny, she dies, and then that leads him to attack back and burn his friend's house. So there's always the implication of violence in his films, and in a religious fashion, because he very intensely wants, and just to show that I'm not making things up here, he shows like the Virgin Mary 1,000 times in this film, like as a sign of,
Catholic.
Virgin Mary. Yeah, very Catholic. It's like, maybe it has something to do, I don't know if he's Irish, maybe I have seen, so maybe it has something to do with that. But she's seen as the figure, that this feminine figure that somehow makes both men part ways. Then there's because literally it's a statue that is at the crossroads, where one way leads you to the pub, another way leads you to the house of Pádraic, I think. And you see both characters kind of parting ways at one point in the film when that happens. And she's a statue there at that crossroads. And then another female figure in the film that kind of provides that religious or really, I don't know how to call it,
Spiritual, maybe.
Spiritual, yeah, like it's a Catholic, but at the same time it feels like some kind of paganism, because there's the idea of banshees, and you have Mrs. McCormick, who is this kind of old lady in the film who takes shape of a banshee, like Colm described in his song, and who starts to fill this role of a ghost that foresees bad future in the film. And that's interesting when he comes in, because then the film it warrants this landscape that is filled with isolation and a certain loneliness, a sadness in its loneliness, that is this island. It gives it some kind of a physical form that carries fear with it. I feel so that way. It realizes it.
Comparing it to Bruges, which it's the only one that I've watched from him other than this one. I haven't watched Seven Psychopaths or Three Billboards, which I assume I'm probably not going to like as much as these two, even though I didn't love these two as well. I like them, but I think the writing is a really good writer. The only thing, and I think I've talked to you about this slightly, is that the directing and visually, it just doesn't
do much.
Doesn't do much.
Another guy doesn't do much. Yeah.
In a way, it's not bad. It's competent.
No.
Okay,
it's exactly.
But it's nothing beyond that. It's so sad because the writing is so good. There's so much to take from it where you can expand visually, but he's content to just let the writing do everything, which again I kind of respect. But I mean, this is a film. I'd like to see something more.
Would you say that in that regard, you being a fan of Lubitsch, he is akin to him? Because I have said at Lubitsch, he doesn't do much in terms of mise en scène, but his scripts, live on in terms of
that's an interesting
films. Would you say he's comparable?
I don't know if he's comparable, because if you watch Lubitsch's silent films, I think you start to understand the simplicity in his talkies, and you start to understand that this is not... Like, this is a guy who clearly knows how to communicate everything through gestures and through the actor's performance, and that's what he's really focused on. You don't see a blandness that I see in some of the reverse shots of Mcdonagh. But still, I think that's a good point. Like, Lubitsch does employ a simplistic but still, in my opinion, sophisticated style that I guess Mcdonagh could be going towards. But I don't know. I don't see... I think Lubitsch wrote the scripts in a way that makes total sense for it to be this type of style that he employs. And it's almost deceptive, the simplicity. Whereas with Mcdonagh, it feels more he's writing these incredible stories that they have a simplicity to them, and like you were saying, that it's just a well-told story about a guy who decides to stop being friends with someone. But I do think for me it demands more. I think the biblical nature of the story, there's a grandiosity to it that the filmmaking doesn't follow. It
Yeah.
just these wide shots, sometimes the clouds, the opening up, and you see the sun. Like that's not enough. That's very like super obvious. Of course, you're gonna do that.
It's like you said, sometimes when I'm writing, I think back to what you told me once on how Lubitsch writes. He thinks of how to do it without doing it.
Yeah.
And Mcdonagh, he just stays on the let's do it.
Let's
He
do it.
doesn't, you know. So yeah, definitely, I feel the same. That I find it, it's particularly when it comes to the editing, because I don't know about the directing. I don't know because. He does deliver great performances, I find.
exactly.
Every single character has great nuances, and I'm fixed to the screen watching him play.
When I
And
say directing, it's reductive.
It's
but
the
I mean
mise
more
en scène.
the mise en scène. But yeah, the performance. He's a good director because clearly the
Yeah.
actors are great. Yeah.
Yeah, because he has some. I think he has some beautiful shots in this because the landscape is so beautiful. So it's you can do very little in terms of getting in the way of the landscape. It's gorgeous. But I feel it's really in the editing that he kind of misses an opportunity to make it. For example, in Bruges, because it's such a because it's this image of the purgatory, and it's such a, I feel, a nervous film because the characters are so hectic. I find that the Cuddy style of editing that he has, wanting to see the action all around from different angles and always being kind of in an unrest situation or state, is
It works. You think?
it works. It's I see the aim, but in here where he keeps on the same style, and if you watch the opening, he cuts a lot and without any need. And in this film in particular, where you see along the film that this is a film where in the background of this fallout of this friendship, you have the notion of this being a very isolated island with a very small community where everyone knows about everyone's little dirty laundry and secrets, and it's very difficult, and it's a reward to have a friend that you trust, in, and that friend that you trust in, that is your best friend, is the thing that gets you out of that isolation, gets you out of what Colm Priest says, it's despair, because I think you understand that as the film goes on, one of the great truths or undertones in the film is that he's suffering, I think, from a sort of midlife crisis or depression. But the thing is, this landscape, the silence of the landscape, being arrested by it, visually it's not happening in the film because he's so cutty. I mean, the very opening of just Colin Ferrell, Pádraic, going along the island to his up to his friend's house, he cuts a lot
All the time.
all the time.
You can't take in the
You can't
the
take in,
landscape.
and it's like, I mean, just him going down the hill to his friend's house, if you kind of have a high angle shot, him going down, then you have a low angle shot, him with the house, then you have the shot going in the house. It's just too much. It's almost like he wants to give this whole three-dimensional sense to the landscape, but I don't see the reason for it when your whole spirit about the landscape is to make the silence exist visually, you see. And one of the scenes that is so beautiful, in the writing of it, it's not, and here I'm going forward. It's not just in the visual sense, but how he uses the music. When Pádraic's only friend, animal friend beyond Colm, dies, his donkey Jenny, because of Colm's finger, he throws one of the fingers at the door. When he cuts, it's a kind of a threat. Don't speak to me again, or I'll cut my fingers. He cuts all four of them when he had already cut one, and one of them is, the donkey eats it and he gags on it, and the donkey dies basically, and Pádraic finds him out. And he has this whole afternoon where he's with the donkey on his lap inside his home, and that shot of going from the window out and pushing out and finding him with the donkey on his lap, I think is one of the most beautiful moments in the film. If anything, it's a shot that he nailed it there. But the fact that you have music going along with that kind of chorus that he plays, or sometimes the violins, I sense, you're taking away from it. You're sentimentalizing it. You're taking the weight from it. This film is about silence. If anything, what just happened here? He lost his only friend, his very friend that he had on this island, the friend he most trusted, his lifelong friend, throws all his fingers at him, saying, "Don't talk to me," without saying a word, just the sense of the fingers, right? And all he has left is this same friend he lost killed the other, let's say, friend he had, like, let's say, his outlet, his last resource of companionship, his freaking donkey. So what we have here is this kind of arresting moment where we should just not listen to anything but the action and let the performances breathe. And I think sometimes he fails on that degree in using the music and taking advantage of the silences when it's a film about silence, really, in the background. And visually speaking, just the editing, he cuts too much.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think.
Just like sometimes I'm watching a shot, feeling feeling the weight, and then suddenly he cuts just not at the right time. Like for example, when Shaban leaves, there's a long shot of her like walking that little, that little thing in front of their house where they always walk. You see it a couple times, and Colin Farrell is watching her leave. The shot lasts like, I don't know, maybe 5 seconds, then it cuts to his reaction again. I felt like we could have watched her walking away for much longer and felt the weight of her parting. But it's like he doesn't care about those little visual things that can only be really communicated by the image
Yeah.
with that type of strength. Where like watching someone walk, it's such a simple thing, but with the context of the narrative, it's beautiful, but he doesn't let us really take it in. Because it's like it's Colin Farrell is watching, so let me cut to him looking. That's more important. But I think the shot is from his perspective. We can see that, but
Yeah. In that same vein, for example, there's another scene that kind of bothers me, which is when you it's one of the only scenes where you have Pádraic's sister Shaban alone, and she's by a lake, thinking what to do, if she's going to go to the mainland and have a job, leave the island, leave the despair, how they put it in the film, or stay with her brother and support him these tough times. And she's alone, she's looking in the distance, and suddenly there's the phantom figure. Do you see Mrs.
Yeah.
McCormick? And she's saying, supposedly, she's saying hello back to her, and Shaban waves. And then in this one wide shot, the first shot of the supposed point of view of Shaban, of the old lady on the other side of the lake, you have this wide shot of the old lady who serves as point of view, and she's waving supposedly hi. But then over time, within that shot, you understand that it's not a hi. And then you cut to her and you see her reaction of fear. It's not a hi. It's to her, I mean to Shaban. And you cut back to her, to the old lady in a wide still. And you start understanding that the wave is in fact a come here. So walk over, she's kind of inviting her to come into the water and die, which is horrible. And the realization of that is kind of scary, this figure. But I think it's scarier if we had kept ourselves within this point of view of the wide shot and the understanding over time within that shot that the wave is actually not a high, it's an invitation to death. But what really bugs me is cutting from that wide shot into a medium close-up of the old lady, and then you see what the gesture is, because they're seeing the gesture up close, and I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, we should have kept, it was beautiful, because just that thing of wide shot point of view, cut to Shoban's reaction, you see her face changing, cut back to the wide shot, and then you see the gesture changing in tone, and let's keep that. Let's not have a fourth cut into a closer look of the old lady. Let's just the idea of this distant image and what this little gesture means. It's once again another point that the film could have done in the language of silence, because we are distant. There's distance, there's isolation, there's the landscape speaking, these huge mountains, this huge lake. But nevertheless, what does he do? He cuts away from the huge lake, cuts away from the huge mountain, and just focus on the people and focus on maybe this should be clearer. So he doubts himself, I think. He tries to make everything kind of
too clear
at times. Yeah.
Because the beauty of that moment for me was the initial
uncertainty.
What is that gesture?
Yeah.
But it's also clear that it's not just a wave. It feels like something else. But then he completely shows it, and
Yeah, I mean, it was scary. I was scared. Like she was doing the gesture. I thought it was a high initially. Then you cut to Shaban. Her face changes in fear. You cut back to the white, who serves as point of view, and you start to see, no, it's not that. It's the other thing. It's But then right there, and then they cut to the closer image, and I'm like, why are we doing this?
Restraint. You need
Yeah,
restraint, Martin.
restraint, simplify.
Yeah.
But on a positive side, I find that he has beautiful lines and he's capable of when he comes into these moments in the dialogue where he uses the exposition of, let's say, the truth-telling moments of what the characters feel or what's going on in terms of the real reason of why the breakup happens. It doesn't feel like the delivery of those moments doesn't feel like heavy exposition or too obvious or too literal, because he works the dialogue over time, and I find that interesting. He has patience with the dialogue itself. He knows how to work out subtext, how to work out the dramatic dynamic between characters, and the colloquialisms, the expressions, all of that really works into, and he knows how to create, let's say, not visual rhythms, because in a visual way he doesn't really create that, but in rhythms, reverberations with words that come back, in time. For example, you have this moment with Shaban and Colm where she confronts him in the pub the first time around about, why are you not talking with my brother? And they seem to kind of have this rapport with each other where, at least on Colm's side, he expects her to understand him, because you feel that these two characters are made of the same fiber, the same sensibility. Like they want more than just the simple existence on that island.
Yeah, exactly.
And at first, in that moment, she doesn't respond to him and just goes away. He's like, don't you understand me? Don't you? And I like the fact, in that moment, he does one thing right. He has the point of view of Colm following her from the counter at the pub into the exit of the pub, and it's only the point of view of Colm, like following her and him, and you hear his voice in the background kind of asking again, don't you understand me, don't you? And she looks at him, doesn't respond, goes away. And okay, this, you felt something here visually. You felt it was good to retain yourself within this shot and this span and following her. And then soon after, I mean, a little bit beyond in the film, you have this moment at their house where she confronts him again, tries to understand why is he being like this, because we have to understand, I mean, first we have a paradox in the film. At first he says he doesn't want to be friends with him anymore, and eventually he presents the reason why. Pádraic is dull. He doesn't want to waste his time with dullness. He wants to do something with his time, with his life, produce something that makes his name known throughout time with his music. But then his only way, or his brutal way, he has to make show his friend that he doesn't want to be friends with him anymore, is to cut his fingers. And that seems paradoxical, because it's like, wait a minute, Colm, Sonny Larry. Wait a minute. By cutting your fingers, you're not going to produce that music that you so are in love with. And then you have this moment. It's a long time before we get like some kind of a sense or answer to this thing, because I think if the film didn't answer this in some degree, it would be strange. It would be illogical. But the way he answers it is earned in the moment, because we have kind of built dramatically to this moment, and it's said in such a way that it isn't obvious. He says it. We're getting somewhere now, because she does confront him about, why are you cutting your fingers? It won't help with your music. And he says that line, and then she finally says, you might be ill, I think. And he replies, sometimes I worry that I might just be entertaining myself. And you understand, because this connects back with the talks, with the conversation with the father, the confessions, that it's all about the despair that everybody seems to feel, or there's the potential of everybody to feel in their most lonely moments in this island. It's depression, and you understand that moment that he's having some kind of midlife crisis about himself, because it doesn't really matter. It's like, yes, he wants to produce his music, but he can't produce his music in his head alone and cut his fingers off, because what he's really doing is kind of make something happen, make an event happen in that boredom, that dullness in that island,
All fucking boring.
Fucking boring. So I think he's just trying, it's really that, he's trying to make some commotion happen in that island between them. And he converts his friend, his ex-friend, Pádraic, who's kind of very stale, and I think because you soon understand that what he doesn't like about Pádraic is his staleness and the aimless chatting, and in a twisted way he wants him to respond with violence. He wants him to respond. The friendship becomes this thing where they don't stop being friends in a way, but they become frenemies, and their language of behavior with one another is through provocation and agitation and irritation and fighting. I mean, literally, he makes his own friend burn down his house, and he doesn't even seem half bored about it. It's just it ends with the conversation where some things just exist this way, and it just seems that we're gonna continue on until our graves, and he seems content with that existence. He doesn't even. This is calm. He doesn't even protest about it. He just takes it in, and it just seems another way of being in that island, just something to entertain themselves. And to me, that's where the ending became more interesting the second time around I saw it. Because before I thought it was anticlimactic. Like, if you're gonna die, you're gonna die. You put an elephant in the room. That's what I thought the first time around. But the second time around, I thought, maybe not. Maybe this is where Martin wanted to take Pádraic to this kind of transformation where he's not stale anymore. He's not one note with Colm. He doesn't want to try and revival the relationship. He just accepts that this is the kind of relationship they have now, this sense of friction all the time.
Although on that note, I don't know if the film, like, there seems to be an attempt at creating an allegory with the Civil War.
Yeah, I don't know if it works.
I don't see it.
I don't see it.
I don't know if it's because I don't have an historical understanding of it, but it feels very thin. Like, okay, yeah, it's a civil war, so yeah, it's Irish people fighting Irish people. But
I think part of me is because I don't have an understanding of it. I think that's probably why. Because I think for a long time my sense is that I sense that it is supposed to mirror the story, because you feel at the end of it that this is going to be the language of the relationship until the end of times. And I think there is this tension in Ireland. There was there in the 20s, it was there back in the 80s with the IRA and all the bombings, and I don't know if there is today to some degree.
Yeah, but there it's more against against the English. Like the 80s, the Troubles was more of a, as far as I remember, was like, it was sort of mediated by the English.
Protestants against Catholics, I think, and basically the Protestants are in line with the British.
Yeah, exactly.
Some lines he has in this film are just beautiful. I mean, let me. I wrote some down. I just found it amazing. So one of those lines comes from Colm, and paraphrasing a bit, he says to Pádraic by the entrance to the pub. He's basically revealing why he doesn't want to talk to him anymore for the first time. And he says, why should I spend the rest of my life in aimless chatting with a limited man, even if he is my friend, basically. And this idea, there's such cruelty in this one line, and the way he uses the adjectives, it's just very rich and very poignant, because it's really difficult to say this in the face of someone who was your friend, and you're telling this to someone who is your friend, and you are insulting him. And the idea that you're canceling a friendship, you're barring him from interacting with you in any shape or form just because you find them dull. It's something that it's so simple, and yet bigger, a truth that is bigger than life, because somewhere or another we all felt in that position where we don't wish harm to the person. The friendship does not end in a sense that they become enemies, but it just ends because they simply want to walk different paths, or walk on different paths, or are different people, have been turned into that. And I think it is fascinating for the audience to follow along this very simple thing, because it's almost like we are seeing this protagonist who is Pádraic trying to retrieve this treasure, who isn't a physical treasure. It's not a treasure of golden coins. The treasure is an abstract thing. It's this friendship. And that's why we get so intrigued as the audience. We are trying to retrieve this abstract thing who feels like property. No. This thing we have together, this is ours. Because friendships, it's almost like the first marriage in life amongst people. It's the first marriage that you have in life, because love relationships, and I think that's what the movies does so well, is that it takes friendship seriously, has a romantic relationship, because a lot of the feelings you have in a romantic relationship, the basic feelings that make it run, come from friendship, because what is a love relationship first and foremost its inner core, at its inner core, it's a friendship. It first and foremost starts as a friendship. It needs to be. So you are consumed by a person, you get a hit of dopamine, you get addicted to that person, you want to feel consumed by that person, you want to talk to that person, have rituals with that person. Hey, let's see each other at 8 o'clock, go grab a pint or something. You have these things, and it's almost like the other person belongs to you in the worst and best possible scenarios. It's not like you would immediately say that, but this thing belongs to us. It's almost, I think there's this idea in the film of property, and Pádraic wanting that to happen, to continually happen, and you have that sense of this is ours, this is us, and why are you trying to make it not happen? When at another moment when they find themselves on the beach and Pádraic tries to make conversation, tries even to touch him, there's that sense of touch, of reaching out to Colm, and Colm is just like, what are you doing? What is this?
I mean,
and
are
in that
you
moment,
fucking stupid?
yeah, are you fucking stupid? And it's that sense of, you see the hand reaching out, and it's this sense of having your mind. This is ours. Why are you doing this to me? And it just feels so cruel, because like there's cruelty, and also it's so you understand, Colm's ambition to want to do something else with his time, but at the same time, it is very cruel. It's one of those things that it is very empathetic. It is very immediately. It is very engaging to see because of these truths in the film that he explores very well in the
I think
writing.
that's the strength of the film, is that you can understand both of them and you can empathize with both of them. Even though I think like Colm is more portrayed as the villain, and Pádraic is more of the hero, quote unquote hero. But both sides you can sort of understand, because at some point you are like just leave him alone, Pádraic. What are you doing? You're so stupid.
Because the thing is, they both have flaws. You
exactly.
can understand. You can understand Colm, but Colm does things that are at the beginning and then after far too harsh. He cuts his fingers. He just stops talking with him through and through. He is brute with him. He ignores him. Doesn't dare to look at him even when he knocks at his house the first time around. And it's just too harsh.
Yeah, I think that's like the harshness is that there isn't even like a veneer of politeness, like of keeping it polite but distant. He just turns his eye, doesn't care. He's telling him he's limited and aimless, all that shit. So usually in these types of situations, I guess you'd still maintain sort of like a nod or an hello when you cross each other's path, but he doesn't even do that. It's even more cruel. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's like and then there at these other levels, the honesty of the character, the bluntness, both you find it harsh, like we just described. At the same time, it really engages you. We would like to see the defects, the flaws in a character when they become fleshed out like that. And each of these characters, the looks they give, the way to use the terminology of the Irish culture, the way they use the adjectivation to get their truth across or their emotions across, it's so specific to every single one of them. You know that Coogan's character Dominic is very specific in his looks, in this, in his mannerisms. Pádraic as well. I love the other line that he gives out to Colm at night at the pub when he becomes drunk and he decides to confront him real greedy, needy, in the same language as his for the first time, like a brute. And he says these lines that, in a film that visually speaking, and he said it, I think it fails or doesn't show much. I think in the writing, it touches me very much because he just says, I think he would deserve the Oscar. I think just to not be a big ass character, icon like Elvis, that would be too obvious. I think Colin would be interesting.
I do think it's gonna go to Austin probably, but
probably.
I would like to see Colin win here.
Yeah, he's been on it for a very long time. And he says this line, which is, "You used to be nice." What is it? You used to be a nice man. Oh God.
Oh, maybe you never were.
Yeah, and he says this. He has these pauses. Oh God, maybe you never were nice. And you cut to his face, to Colm's face, and he's disgruntled about it, but at the same time, you see some sort of compassion about it, some sort of understanding, and it's just a blow in the stomach. It's like, Jesus Christ. Now we have the layer of the idea that maybe there was no friendship, that maybe they were just, having conversations to pass the time. All of it was just aimless conversations. Like, in the very sense of the word, they weren't really fond of each other deep down. Truly, they didn't find, well, Colm didn't find him, never found him interesting. It was just conversation for the sake of passing time in that lonely island, in the existence that they have to live with. And that's even more cruel, the arrival at that realization by the part of Pádraic. I think it's just the way he delivers it. I mean, Colin Ferrell has a face that is very, you see the schoolboy, young charm in him, and you see the innocence in his face, and it's just,
His eyebrows.
it blows you over, I think. Yeah, his eyebrows, the sadness in it.
Yeah, the way he delivers that one. And the dialogue is not particularly showy. It's very to the point. It's the delivery. And it's well written, it's not to undermine, but the delivery is even better.
Yeah, the delivery is even better.
The pause is perfect.
On the hands of lesser actors, this could be seen as obvious dialogue, but it isn't. It is not. I think the dramatic dynamic that he composes with these actors, and at times the blocking, when it works, it works very perfectly.
Yeah,
like this scene in the pub, the blocking is very good, and the editing as well. It works. The shot reverse, the simple shot reverse shot logic or dynamic works there. Or when we have him discussing with Shaban what he really feels, what Colin feels about his brother, works too. So yeah,
like the shot reverse shot. It's a tool, and it makes sense to use it.
Yeah, it's a tool. Makes sense to use it. It's
just
a good.
At times, it's a crutch. At times, it's just because you have no other ideas, and other times it's because it's the most effective way of delivering whatever you're trying to deliver, be it narrative or visual.
Yeah.
Like the Coen brothers, I always think of them. They use it, and even David Fincher, they use it a lot, but always with so much purpose, and the timing of the cuts is always perfect. It always serves well. Sometimes here I'm watching, and I think, now to go back to Lubitsch a bit, I think maybe here a two shot of the people talking face to face would work too, and why not do it here? Other times I think, no, the shot reverse shot here makes sense because there's a separation between the characters. But yeah, I think he needs just feel like he needs sometimes to think beyond the shot reverse shot. When characters are talking, because I do think that's his weakest moments, is when it's just characters face to face talking. Because in other times he shows that he has good ideas visually, especially in like the beginning of a scene and at the end. But in the middle, I feel like he just doesn't put that much thought into it. It's about the performance, which fair enough. But like, for example, Lubitsch wouldn't cut so much the way he does. Like we talk about Lubitsch being simple, but sometimes it's like very long shots of two people face to face talking and delivering seamless dialogue and moving from moving, sitting down, getting up, and you don't even notice that he hasn't cut, but he hasn't. And like, that's something that I don't think Mcdonagh does. Or, I don't know, maybe he doesn't do it for a reason, but I feel like sometimes you do need longer shots of the characters interacting with one another. That doesn't feel so separated. Like with Colm and Pádraic, I guess it makes sense because of the separation. But with his sister, sometimes I feel like we needed a bit more of that.
Yeah, it feels like he uses the same dynamic for shot reverse shot in most characters, all characters' relationships, whether it be with Colm and Shaban, or Colm and Pádraic, or Colm and the bartender. You always have the same logic of shot reverse shot. It doesn't come with different flavors, because that's what we're discussing really. How can you give different flavors to this ages-old technique of shot reverse shot in cinema? Because at times you want simply shot reverse shot technique. There's not much to it. You just try to make the poignancy of the cut be felt in the dramatic bits, in the range of the dramatic bits, and that's that. But sometimes, on given scenes that you see a character having an emotional attitude that is particularly interesting for some reason, you want to make a shot linger longer, or maybe you don't want to use the short reverse shot too much. Maybe you want to make the conversation be felt through a wide shot, find some, or through a cutaway. Maybe we never looked at the other character while the other is talking. Maybe we have a shot on the face of one, and then when we cut back, we don't cut his back to his face. We see something else. I don't know, just playing around with other shots beyond the idea of I'm sticking to these characters' faces. I think sometimes some editors have difficulties with that, and just say that, well, these are the rules. These are what we need to follow, right? And instead of seeing rules as principles, they see it as unshakable rules. The only way. For example, the 180-degree rule. I think if you may break it. It's not like, of course, in most cases, you should respect it. It's a safe bet, of course, because if you break it, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna create that dissonance. But the point is, if I'm going to create dissonance, why am I creating it? That's the thing. That's the only thing. If I'm breaking the rule, why am I breaking the rule? If you know why you're breaking the rule and that has an effect and you know it, then do it. That's basically it. So if you want to break the 180-degree rule and you have a motivation for it and you feel it's going to work, then do it. That's basically it. If you're going to break it and you don't know why, then don't be stupid. That's only my advice,
The 180 rule, like, it's just a way of maintaining visual consistency.
Yeah.
But if you can maintain visual consistency while breaking it, like, for sure, like, go ahead. Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that Paul Thomas Anderson has done that in Phantom Thread.
Oh, yeah, he does it. Most directors at some point break, like, sometimes break it even without noticing it. Like, even Mcdonagh here does it sometimes. Like when Dominic and Chauvin are talking and he's asking her out. Like, he sometimes jumps to the other side. Sometimes he stays in here. Sometimes you see them from the front. Sometimes you see them, which, for example, like that. I don't know if, like, it's not bad visually in the sense that you're lost and you don't know where the characters are, but it doesn't seem purposeful. It doesn't seem like a breaking of the rule that communicates much. It seems just like he's trying to get a better angle of the actor's face, which is legitimate too, but I don't know. But yeah, the Phantom Thread one you're talking about is the one when they first meet.
Yeah,
Vicky Creeps. And
I remember from editing days class,
Yeah, me too.
And we watching the trailer, and
yeah,
the teachers
showed that to exemplify, and she showed to both classes apparently, because we were not on the same class, right?
I don't think so. Back then there was A and B class. I remember in those first editing classes watching like Hunger from Steve McQueen as well.
Yeah, me too.
Those first interactions with thinking of editing, and how thinking of every shot has a unit of meaning, a word of meaning, and important in the structure of the scene. That was interesting to talk. Everything became serious then. Yeah.
I mean, this is what I was gonna say now that you mentioned that. Like, the important thing is also that not every shot needs to be like a grand statement. And
I mean, sometimes
it's functional. Like,
sometimes it's purely functional. Sometimes it's really. I mean, sometimes you're making a scene and you're looking at it and you're like, dude, this shot is just accept. You're editing it, and you're trying to make everything fit into a statement, a meaning. Why you did but sometimes you're like, this shot is purely functional. This is why you're doing it. Don't overthink it. It's functional. Yeah.
Because sometimes rhythm, like you need the shot there because otherwise you're breaking the rhythm that you've established with the edit. So you just need it there.
Yeah. But the good thing is that functional shots don't come in great quantity.
Yeah, exactly.
They serve more like punctuation. So it doesn't hinder the film. You're much more concerned with the storytelling prowess of it and what each shot means, really, of course. And then whatever comes as functional it comes occasionally where to like you said, puncture the rhythm, because a lot of editing is about visual and even oral rhythm, like music.
Yeah, that's really the conclusion with McDonagh for me. I don't know. I was thinking about the Fablemans and comparing, like, when you're watching Spielberg, you just feel what's the word? I don't know. Strange. Like there's a you feel a purpose to every moment visually, even if it's a very talked film. Whereas here, it feels less purposeful. It feels less.
Yeah, yeah. It's also it's the thing is he aims, I think, in his film for a net beyond this, beyond editing, is also the atmosphere that he creates. So it's about his mise en scène and probably also as well color correction and whatever mood he gives to the film. He always aims for this naturalistic look, but and this is too harsh of a comparison to Martin Mcdonagh because he's not within this style of filmmaking. But these are the filmmakers I'm thinking right now. In terms of naturalism, there are styles you can approach and imprint on a film. For example, you have Sang-soo, that's naturalism. And what was the other director I was thinking this morning? Because I was thinking about this very point. I don't know, but Sang-soo is an example, and it's naturalism, and he has a style to his film. You see the texture, the quality of the footage that you're getting with the quality of the editing is very particular as well, with his zoom ins and outs and his long shots. In here, Mcdonagh, the thing is, he's very bland. The visual aspects of it and the editing aspect of it is very run of the mill. So it doesn't do much in the way of it. When with Fablemans, you have this feeling of, Spielberg really likes windows with brightness coming out of it. They are filtered out. You don't see the outside. You only see this kind of glistening exterior coming in, and it feels like a dream. And it's kind of it's kind of, there's a humidity in the air, and it's very bluish. It's in the case of that film, you feel kind of an old 50s 60s flavor to it, and the editing is very good. He does a lot of editing wonders in that film as well. You have the scene where he's at the Moviola, of course. So,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And and the just scenes of character, like the whole thing with Uncle Boris. There's like this shot where like when the heightening of the emotions, when the emotions heighten, like Uncle Boris gets really close to the camera. Like he wasn't in a close up, but suddenly he is. And the camera didn't really move. It was the actor. Like that sort of dynamic is something that you don't see so much with McDonagh. Whereas with Spielberg, it's part of his whole arsenal of tricks. Let's say he's constantly doing stuff like that, or long takes that you don't notice are long, but are constantly moving and reframing. So he's doing the editing much like Hong Sang-soo in camera, but in very different ways, of course. With Hong Sang-soo, you notice it, whereas with Spielberg, he's hiding it, which is both like legitimate approaches that I love.
Yeah. They work for different reasons. Basically, that's the way. That's the way into it. Different styles, different reasons, and that scene is very complicated. Now we're talking about Fablemans, but that scene is particularly complicated because of the blocking. The actors move around so much. It's a very interesting choreography that he has with Boris, kind of cornering his own nephew, and the flow of emotions that he goes through. What the fuck are you doing? In a good way, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Just that whole scene, you can like deconstruct it and try to see how he does it.
Yes.
Whereas with McDonagh here, I don't like. There's no scene visually between two people talking that I'm like deconstructing and like thinking about in these terms. There's moments that are interesting and well thought out, but not as
because the actors don't move too much. It's like there's the blocking with the actors in terms of them having a free range of movement. They often stand up still or sitting down, and then the camera takes in the range and takes in the ranges and starts covering the whole thing.
Like I don't oppose that because I guess it makes sense considering the setting, considering the characters, that they're more like still
push, yeah.
But the filmmaking doesn't really follow that. Still, like the stillness, you don't feel so much in the filmmaking.
then again, when it comes to, the second half of the film becomes much more about this paganistic landscape, where the landscape starts to take in and the ghosts start to take in, with Miss McCormick serving that role of the ghost of the future who carries in death, and one of them is going to die. And at first, when I saw the film, I thought, well, this is cheap, because the first time around, because it's like everything needs to end in death, and he needs to die or someone will die. But I think the second time around, I was more appreciative of how the film turned around the corner and didn't make the character die. But the thing is, as I was saying, he goes on into that atmosphere through the text, but visually, it's not arresting, right? He does those wide shots; they don't grab you there. It's just he doesn't take advantage of the silence once again.
And even this is like probably just nitpicky for me, but I don't like the wide frame aspect ratio and the texture of the image. I don't think it serves the context
in this film in particular.
In this film in particular, right. I don't think it serves the very rustic,
you would say,
rustic context. Like, I feel like it needed more grain. It needed like a more traditional, like
a 4:3.
Maybe not 4:3, but like 185 or 166. Like the more boxy shaped ones.
Yeah, but not too boxy. That's all for today. If you'd like to reach out and suggest a film for the next episode, you can find us on the podcast official Instagram and Facebook pages. Don't forget to subscribe, share this episode, or simply give us a like. That's how our podcast can grow ever more groovy. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.